Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. I'm back from vacation, and on this episode we have lots of topics to cover. We'll start off talking about Charlie Watts and his unfortunate passing, and then we'll dig a little bit into the Kiss situation with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons both testing positive for COVID, and we'll also touch a little bit on Gene Simmons' comments on David Lee Roth. There's lots to cover in this episode, so let's jump in and let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today, I'm excited to have back with me the chemist, my buddy, my partner in crime, and any other nicknames I like to give him.
Well, we won't go through all of them because they're a bit offensive.
Mr. Vincent LaRussa. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing a little bit glorious. Back from my 8-day vacation.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it was. I had a pleasant time. I was down in Florida in Disney, and the parks were empty, which was very nice. There was like nobody around, short waits. It was quite glorious to be away and be in the sun and be out and having a good time. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. A lot of rock news happened while I was gone. I know you kept texting me, this happened and this happened. I'm like, oh my God. In fact, I think you jokingly said we should do a podcast from your car while I'm driving back home. But
Yeah.
no, it was a good time. I'm sorry you were working, unfortunately, here back in New York, but I was enjoying the good life.
Yeah. Well, good for you. You deserve it.
Yes, I do. You're right.
That's good.
You like that answer?
Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, I know while I was away, there was a lot of, like I said, rock news that happened. First, we know the Kiss tour got postponed right now. Paul Stanley first tested positive for COVID. Then Gene Simmons tested positive for COVID. Before that, Charlie Watts had passed away. So where do you want to start? We got a lot of catching up to do here. So which one do you want to start with?
Well, I think out of respect for a man who's a legend who's passed away, let's start with Charlie Watts. I think it's a very appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. And, obviously you as a drummer and even more of a classic rock fan than I am, I'm guessing that had a bit of an impact on you. What were your thoughts when you found out that he passed away?
I mean, the first thing I thought of was I had heard before he had passed that they had, I guess, maybe replaced him with Steve. I think it was Steve Jordan on drums because he couldn't make some shows. So it really wasn't. I don't think it was ever put out there what the reason was. But obviously he was sick and he couldn't make those shows. I don't even know if since then they've actually made a formal announcement of what he's passed away from. I don't know if you know that info.
I did not see it, but again, I was busy on vacation mode,
Yeah,
but I didn't see it.
I didn't see it. So yeah, I mean, I'm a long time Rolling Stones fans, and people say, what is it, the big three or four? You had the Who, Zeppelin, the Stones, and what's the one? I feel like I'm forgetting one more.
Beatles?
Well, the Beatles, yeah, but I'm talking about bands that have still been playing.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, the Zeppelin was playing up until Bonham died.
Right.
And they were saying that the Rolling Stones now will have two original members not in the band. Because remember, right now it's Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, Ron Wood, who was an original guitar player, although he's in the band much longer than Brian Jones was in the band and a founding member.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just out of those, Keith Moon, John Bonham, Charlie Watts, those kind of legendary drummers of those bands. Now we've lost three of them, and yeah, it's undeniable to me his impact on drums and what kind of influence he had. And the great thing about, I know I'm already launching into my analysis here. I don't know if you were asking for that,
Go
but
ahead. Go ahead.
the wonderful thing about Charlie is that, how you can be simple but be in the pocket.
Yep.
You talk about a legendary drummer like Neil Peart. There's nothing like Charlie Watts, or vice
Right.
versa.
Agreed. Yep.
And they both have their own things that made them legends. And I know, Charlie was into playing swing and some jazz and stuff like that, and he had that kind of influence a lot in his playing, although you really didn't hear that at all, basically, in any of the Rolling Stone stuff. But yeah, just a guy who played with a unique way. He never played the hi-hat and the snare at the same time. If you ever see him playing, he would always pull up on the hi-hat. It was a very kind of like that's like his known thing. And I think when he was interviewed about that, he said something about, I think Chad Smith, drummer of the Chili Peppers, had asked him about that, was for recording, that you get that isolation on the snare drum with every hit. Because normally if a drummer's playing like, a 4/4 groove, they go 1, 2, 3, 4. So, so 1, 2. So they're meeting together, the hands on 2, 3, and 4, and for a basic pattern. So what Charlie would do is he's playing 1, 2, 3, 4. So he would not hit that hi-hat. So you'd get that clear sound without the hi-hat being blended in. And
interesting.
And if you go back and watch his playing, it's really, really cool. And I was always, when I was younger, I was like, why is he, when I was first learning to play drums, what is he doing? What, he can't do that? Like,
Right.
But it was just like his style, and he just, always played that way. And the other thing that's great about Charlie is that he basically played one drum set for many, many years. Here's a guy who's had millions of dollars, but he played this natural Gresh kit, and I, for somebody like myself who's polluted with instruments at his house,
Right.
I would say to myself, like, how does somebody just stick to one? Don't you get tired of that? But again, that goes to show you, it wasn't really, it was about the equipment, because obviously he loved that drum set and loved the sound.
Yep.
But he wasn't like, well, let me distract myself and get this kid. And again, I'm not saying he never played other kits. And, maybe it was when he was in the studios, depending on the producer, they might have said, hey, listen, for this song, for this particular track, we're going to put a Ludwig kit down or whatever. But again, totally appreciate the fact that, he played basically one kit, a couple different cymbals he used. And, from Start Me Up, if you think about the way Start Me Up starts, like the way he comes in on that, and it's totally like unique, and and to me, whether it's a Ringo Starr, who was an obvious pioneer, who came up with drum licks, they talk about guitar licks, bass licks, and we talked about this with Peter Criss, listen to Charlie's playing and you'll hear all kinds of things that didn't exist before him.
Sure.
So Brown Sugar is one of my favorite songs. I stole that groove many times. That he's that he's playing. It's not and he's playing on the floor tom.
Right.
Think about Eric Carr in the '80s. He would play a lot of riding on the floor toms.
Right.
And that was always like a kind of a cool, unique thing. I'm not saying it was derivative from Charlie, but it could have been. And I'm not even saying Charlie was the first one to do that.
Right.
But there's a lot of tunes in rock that that the Stones recorded that had that kind of feel, and I always loved that sound.
Well, it's funny because to me, and I'm trying to remember what the first video was I saw from the Rolling Stones. It might have been Start Me Up, or it might have been Miss You. I don't remember which one. But the memory I have, and it's been a few years since I've seen the video, but the memory I have is not of Mick Jagger, is not a Keith Richards. It's Charlie Watts, just almost seeming like disinterested, I'm going to say, while playing drums. Like,
Yeah,
It's
yeah, he
like
had
so,
that. He had a smile. He had that
right?
kind of had that face, like
Yeah, exactly.
and it. Yeah,
And that's such like that's my first memory of the Rolling Stones that I have is Charlie
yeah.
Watts, which is, when you think of some of the personalities in that band, it's pretty amazing that that's my first memory.
Yeah.
And I remember like at that time, like you said, like whether it's Neil Peart, whether it was Peter Criss, whether it was Bill Ward, whatever, these rock drummers were usually very animated. And there's Charlie,
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
nonchalant about it. And that was always a memory I had of him. It just seemed like it was like just so, and I say he looked disinterested, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It just seemed
Mm-hmm.
like it was just so natural and just like, oh yeah, I'm just playing drums. It's okay. This is what I do for a living. I could do this really
Mm-hmm.
good. It's just
Mm-hmm.
such a vivid memory I have of the Stones. And I saw the Rolling Stones for the first time in concert 3-4 years ago. Because like I said, I'm not the biggest Rolling Stones fan. And I left that night, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was not thoroughly impressed the way I was when I saw Paul McCartney, is the best way to say it. But when I heard of Charlie's passing, my first thought was, I'm so glad I went that night. I am so,
Mm-hmm.
which is exactly why I drove 4 hours to Washington, D.C., because I didn't want to lose that opportunity. And you never know when the next one's going to be, if there's going to be one. And I
Right.
said to myself, thank God I did go. Thank God I did get to see him, because it might not have been my top 10 concert, but I'm so
Mm-hmm.
thankful that I did get to see him and the Stones, because it's going to be a little bit different now. I know they're going out on tour. He's not going
Mm-hmm.
to be there. And to me, it's going to be different without him there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the guy who they got in place, Steve Jordan. I mean, he is a phenomenal drummer. He's played with Keith Richards in the past, I think, on some of his solo stuff. He's played with so many. He's a session guy. He dates back to the early Letterman, man. As a matter of fact, he was the drummer before Anton Fig. If you look at the early Letterman shows, before Anton was the drummer, it was Steve Jordan.
I didn't realize that.
And
Okay.
and yeah, and he's played with more so recently John Mayer. He's an
Mm-hmm.
awesome drummer. Totally different than Charlie, but a guy when having to play simple, he could do it. I mean, even the guy who they had who replaced Bill Wyman, Daryl Jones, I think his name is, a phenomenal bass player. But listen, he's not there to be, playing all kinds of,
Right.
slapping and doing runs on the bass. Those guys, when they're hard, they're respecting the music. I'm not saying they're not going to go out of the zone a little bit. I'm sure they give them some space. But I saw them, I think it was maybe 2013. I'm not quite sure when I saw them. I saw them at, I think was it MetLife yet, or was it still Giant Stadium? I don't know. It might have been right before that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I have the same feeling now. I'm glad that I did get to see them. And because I have regrets about other bands like The Who. I mean, I
Sure.
know I could still go see The Who, but John Entwistle's one of my heroes.
Right.
And,
Yep.
able to go to see The Who with John Entwistle.
I hate to admit this, but when I heard of Charlie's passing, I was like, Keith Richards is going to outlive all of them. I'm convinced of that.
The ironic thing is Keith Richards is never going to die. That's the
No,
thing.
exactly. And that's
Yeah,
my point.
we're
And
not.
that's
They're not even sure he's human.
no,
That's the
exactly.
thing. Yeah,
Exactly.
but yeah, I mean, if you think about that, what the noted life that these guys have had, they've been very
Hmm.
honest about, especially in
Yep.
the early years. Um, it's an incredible thing that he's outlasted so many people, but
It really
it,
is.
it must be he's got good genes or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But yeah, again, Charlie, there's so many songs that come to my mind,
Hmm.
because the Rolling Stones, they went through that psychedelic period, they went through early '70s, I mean, Exile on Main Street, and my favorite album by theirs is Sticky Fingers,
Okay.
which I think came out in '70. I may be wrong about that, '70, '71, and then I think Exile was after that. Those are noted to be like a lot of fans say that's their. A lot of people say Exile, but I guess you can debate that, but they consistently came out with good records, classic songs, and even in the mid '70s, let's face it, Kiss got criticized for going disco.
Hmm.
Miss You, that was a 12-inch single,
Yep.
with a backbeat. If you listen, that's Four on the Floor, or even like Emotional Rescue. If you listen to the bass on that, which is classic. I mean, you
Hmm.
should go back and listen to that.
Yep.
I know
Hmm.
you, but that was '78.
Yep.
They were delving into that stuff,
As many artists were. They're far
as
from the
many
only
artists
ones.
were.
Let me ask you, do you remember what my first Rolling Stones album was?
I would have to think just to, was it Steel Wheels?
Nope.
Uh, First Rolling Stones album. No.
So I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's what's the one that has Undercover of the Night on it? Is it
Oh,
Dancing? This has
yeah, that
the woman's
was.
body with the stickers all
Yeah, yeah,
over
yeah, yeah.
it,
I didn't know
right?
you had that one.
Yeah, that was my
Uh,
first Rolling Stone album.
was that maybe just Cold?
Was it just called Undercover or
I
Dancing
think so.
Undercover or something like that?
Not Dancing.
It's
Definitely wasn't Cold. I
no.
had that. Funny, I had that 45.
Okay, yeah. So that was my first Rolling Stone album, and I used to love that
Interesting.
song, Undercover of the Night. That was
Yeah,
like my, I don't say my introduction to the Stones because I knew them. Like I said, I'd seen the videos a few years before that, but that was the first Stones album I owned.
yeah, yeah. And interestingly enough, I listened to that song recently, and I think it was "Miss You," because
Mhm.
I was listening to the bass on those songs, and then like again, no disrespect to Bill Wyman, I'm like, there is no way that Bill played on these songs. And then when I
Mhm.
looked at it, was I think Robbie Shakespeare or who they would bring, like Kiss, they would bring in guys like if they wanted a certain feel,
Right.
um, they would bring in outside people. But I remember in 1989, and I said Steel Wheels when they came out with that record, and that was kind of like their comeback record because
Yep.
there was a period from when Undercover came out, and after that, um, Mick Jagger came out with an album called She's the Boss,
Yep.
and
I remember that.
then Keith Richards came out with a record, and they were kind of in a rift.
Mhm.
So from like maybe let's say, and again, don't quote me on these dates, but let's say from like 86 to about 89, and they had all gotten back together in 89 to record, and this great footage that you could look on online. Look up online recording of Mixed Emotions. It's really cool because you see them
Okay.
working the song out. There was a whole documentary of them going. I forgot they went to some island and they were all writing together, and it was really really good. And you know me, I love that. I know you love that
Yep.
stuff too, and you
Absolutely.
can
Yep.
see them. And I remember when the record came out and I saw the video for Mixed Emotions, and just like Bon Jovi's "Born to Be My Baby," we love those videos where it looked like they were
Mhm.
in the studio
Right.
recording.
Right. Right. Yeah. Mhm.
And it actually was footage from a lot of the footage was from when they recorded. They actually did take from for the video, but sometimes that stuff is just acted out. But I remember thinking, like, it's 1989. These guys came out in what, 1964?
Mhm.
Again, don't quote me, 63. And they could still produce a hit song. And
Yep.
I thought it was a great song. And then they had "Caught Between a Rock and a Hard Place," which was a big MTV hit for him. And I was just like, it was amazing to me, like this band could still churn out hits. It's like I just think that's incredible after 3 decades. At that point, you had the '60s, the '70s, and the '80s, and they've gone into the '90s making records, into the
Well, I'll say
2000s.
this: that was 3 decades ago.
It's scary to even think that. You know
Right?
what I mean?
That was
It's
32
scary, and
years
I think
ago.
I'm. Should I actually have
32
that?
years ago. That's crazy to me.
And I can actually look here, and it's funny that I mean it's ironic that it's right next to me. So I'm just gonna do this just to be obnoxious. But I have, and this wasn't planned.
Yeah.
And
Well, you've
there's
got 10,000 albums. There's something
and
has to
there's
be near you.
and this is classic. This is Rolling Stones in concert, and they got
Hmm.
Charlie on the cover
Nice.
with like a donkey with his drums and a guitar, and
Uh
he's
huh.
holding, you know,
Nice.
and so again, I'm not lying that I'm a Rolling Stones fan
No, no,
here.
I knew you weren't.
Oh, look, I got two copies.
So yeah.
Oh, the Romantics, they don't count. But
Oh, that's great.
yeah. So
Very
I have
nice.
more, but I was gonna show at the Steel Wheels record for some reason,
Mhm.
but I think it might be somewhere else. But anyways,
No, very good. Well, it's unfortunate. What was he, 80 years old?
yeah.
It's unfortunate. I've said this before when we do episodes like this, all of our heroes from these time periods slowly are going to start passing over the next 10 years. And, it's a shame. Like you said, like we always say, we still have the music. And that's, I guess, the thing that we could always hold on to and listen to. And in the Rolling Stones case, there's a lot of great music to listen to. Like I said, I might not be the biggest fan, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate and know and realize that some of their songs are absolutely great.
Hmm.
And there's a great body of work there. Um, I'm actually glad you said to start with Charlie. I think it was appropriate to do that. And it's interesting because we wanted to discuss Charlie, we wanted to discuss Kiss and the COVID situation. And as Kiss fans know, there is a connection between the bands, and that being Kiss covering the song 2000 Man, which, I think back to 79 when I got Dynasty. I don't know if I've ever told you this. I must have somewhere along the way.
I think we're going to have a similar story here, but go ahead.
I actually never knew that that was a Rolling Stones song previously.
Mm,
I thought that was a song Mick Jagger and Keith Richards wrote for Kiss,
same
and
here.
that it appeared on Dynasty.
I remember thinking, wow,
Exactly.
they wrote it, like, because we didn't know back then,
Right,
we
exactly.
knew that those are the people who wrote the songs, but as a 9-year-old,
Right.
2000 Men wasn't like a Satisfaction, Times on My
Exactly.
Side, or
Exactly.
whatever, it's
Exactly.
like, that's what
I
I
think
thought
it
the
was
same
years
thing.
until I heard the original version.
Yeah.
And then when I heard it, I'm like, whoa, that's trippy. That sounds nothing at all like the Kiss version. But
Yeah.
for probably a good 5 years at that point, I thought 2000 Man was a Kiss original written by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. So
Yeah.
it was kind of ironic when I learned that. I was like, whoa, okay, that's a cover tune. I didn't realize that. But so I guess then turning that corner and moving over to the Kiss thing, you know, we heard first last week Paul Stanley tested positive for COVID, and you and I had gone to the first show. We did our little review of that. When we were chatting about that, I think I made a comment in there. I wanted to go because you don't know if the tour is going to last 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months until it has to be shut down. Well, unfortunately, it was about 10 days and then it got shut down. I can't say I was surprised, and that's not anything other than they've got a big crew working with them. And the second somebody tests positive, the tour has to shut down. It's happened to pretty much most of the bands that are out there right now have had to shut down at least some of their shows. What were your thoughts when you first heard Stanley tested positive for COVID?
At first you're surprised, and I'm thinking, like, why am I surprised? I thought, wow, for the last however many months it's been, year and a half, these guys, no issues. Paul's doing his bike rides. And they were both, as they should, saying, be safe and this and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, 10 days in and you already have it?
Yep.
And then to follow up, then Gene, and I'm thinking, well, naturally, at some point they're sharing microphones to spit this crap flying all out of their mouths. I mean, I'm like, I'm just waiting, like, when are we going to hear Tommy or Eric too? Not that I'm wishing that on them at all, but so yeah, I really wasn't. I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. That's the best. That's the best way. I think it kind of hits a little bit more home when it's like one of your heroes. You know what I mean? You get the, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God! Like,
especially they're not young. They're not
exactly
young guys. I mean,
that.
Paul Stanley's in better shape than I've been at any point in my life. So more power to him. But he's what, 71, 70 years old, something like that. Whatever it is, right?
Did he even turn 70 yet?
Yeah, I think
I thought Gene just turned 72. I always thought there was
Gene
like
turned 72. Yeah, so I know Gene just turned 72 the end of August.
Yeah, I thought Paul wasn't 70 yet, but maybe I'm wrong.
You could double check that. I thought he was 70.
He's 69.
69. Okay, yeah. So I know his birthday's in January. So in January he turned 70.
Wow, for once I knew a date or an age before you. That's a miracle.
Yeah, mark this one down on the calendar. So whatever the case may be, they're both obviously right around 70 years old. And even Tommy and Eric, we talk about them being the younger guys, but Eric's over 60. He's 62, 63. So these guys aren't young. And I think, like you said, when I heard right away, Paul's been taking care of himself for the last year and a half with everything. And within 10 days, bang, he's got it. My first thought was, are they going to pull the plug? Is this going to be, is it a smack in the face of, hey, for the last year and a half, we've been so safe. We're out on the road for 10 days. But it sounds like they're saying they're going to be back out there on September 9th.
That's the thing. And I'm going to actually get the exact, let me see if I can get the exact quote, because I think it may have been on Paul Stanley's Instagram. Let's see if I can pull this up here quickly enough. Paul Stanley Live. Rest, he wrote, doctor's orders so we could hit the road running on September 9th. Staying clear of people for a few more days. Do I think my freedom ever includes jeopardizing other people's health? No, I don't. And I read that, I'm just thinking, like, wait a second, something doesn't make sense here unless No, no, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, not even close. But he says, "Do I think, quote, freedom ever includes jeopardizing other people's health?" But hey, we're going back on the road on September 9th. So
Right.
not so much about jeopardizing somebody else's health. What about your own?
Hmm.
So my feeling is like, all right, what are they going to do when they're on that stage or interacting with other people to make this any more safe that they were doing, unless they were being reckless, and we just don't know about that.
Right. Right.
We saw that for the fan experiences or whatever. If you wanted to take a picture with them, they had the clear
The
shield or whatever it
plexiglass.
is,
Hmm.
plexiglass.
Yeah.
You know, um, I just think, and I think you and I, and we don't usually really talk before
Hmm.
these things, but I think when you were away, when you were driving home, I was talking to you on the phone with your
Yeah.
85-hour, car
Drive.
ride
Yeah.
home. Um, I think you had said something like, what's the rush to get back out there? And I said something, well, they have contracts with, stadiums or, whatever venues, the people who work those venues, the grippers, the this, the that, the concession stands, these people all looking to make money. So, I guess they feel a certain level of responsibility, if that is it,
Right.
you
But
know?
then I think I said to you, I totally understand that and I totally respect that. And if Kiss was any money they earned, putting right back into the arenas and giving it to those concession guys and saying, hey, you guys have been out of work for last year, I would fully respect that. I'm not suggesting that they should do it, but I would fully respect that. My thought when I heard this was that Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, the guys in Kiss, they don't need to worry about their next paycheck. They don't need to worry about, oh, we got to get back out on the road. Otherwise, we can't put food on
Mm-hmm.
the table for our family.
Mm-hmm.
There's some bands out there that need to go back out on tour right now because their income level is just not what Kiss is. I get that. I understand that. I respect that. Everybody has to make a living. And I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here. I
And
just said I came back from Disney for 8 days. Right?
yeah,
That was one of the biggest money making places in the world. Right. So I was away and I understand that. But I just questioned why would Paul and Gene want to, unless it's just so embedded in their blood that they have to. They like it. But then, guess what? This isn't going to be the end of the road if that's their thought process. They're going to just keep
yeah.
going and going and going.
To your point, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't mean to single any guy out, but when you had Steve Whiteman on,
Yep.
didn't he say like, I need to go out there, I need to
Yes.
make money? Like, here's clearly a difference between a Paul Stanley and a Steve Whiteman as far as,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so, and I totally get that, you know.
100%.
I mean, these
And people
guys,
need to make a living. I understand that. Yeah.
these guys didn't have 401ks, they didn't have certain things unless they did their own investments and stuff like that. But if I mean, even if Kiss were to just do concerts and not get anything off the concession stands and off the merchandise, they'd still make plenty of
Exactly.
money, moving forward. We
Yep.
all know that.
Yep.
Um, so
And
yeah,
obviously they're employing stagehands and all
yeah,
those things. So
and
those
that's was
guys
my
are,
point.
thankfully is making money now. But the PR or the bad PR that comes from something like this doesn't fall on the stage hands or anything. It falls back on really Paul and Gene. And I
Yeah,
just wonder why risk life? You're not young. Why risk the bad PR for what? I struggle with that. And again, I was at that first. You and I were at that first show, right? So
hmm
I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here. I was glad they were there. I went, but I just questioned, like, do they sit back now and say, look what just happened. We don't want to put anybody else at risk. Like you said, Paul Stanley, the exact quote that he had there. I paused for a moment. I said, well, you are putting people at risk by going back out on the road. So I'm a little surprised. Again, not judging. I'm just a little surprised based off of, especially Paul, how vocal he's been about it the last year.
yeah, no, no, no doubt. That's just why I see a little bit of irony in this in
Mm-hmm.
this in this comment, and I'm reading it. I mean, you can go to Paul's Instagram, Paul Stanley Live, and see it for yourself.
Yep.
You know, so I don't know. I don't know
Right.
what look, again, we don't want to see our heroes stop playing. Again, if they were never to play again for whatever the reasons being, they just decide, what, let's just play it safe. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. You and I were fortunate enough to see them a couple of weeks ago. I'm happy
Yep.
we did that. I don't have any regrets. I think that's one of the reasons why we've said about whether we're talking about Charlie Watts, whatever. Go see your heroes. Go see the bands that you love while you still can. Because whether they retire or God forbid somebody passes away, you don't want to have any regrets.
Yep.
So, but But I'd like to make a segue at some point with the Kiss thing, if I may,
Go ahead.
unless there's something else you want to add to this whole
Well,
situation.
so I just want to be clear. Well, and I want to talk about the cruise a little bit also, right? So,
Okay, yeah.
I'm thinking about going to see Ace Frehley next weekend, right? Him and Alice
Thanks for
Cooper
the
is going to be.
invite.
Well, I haven't gotten a ticket yet, so maybe you'll get an invite when I decide if I'm going. um, right.
Yeah,
I've done that. I went to see Green Day in Weezer with 65,000 people in a stadium. So
I
I'm
was
not
George.
suggesting. What was that?
I was
George and
George.
George and Wheezy. George was
Yeah,
doing
oh,
good.
Weezy, Weezer. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
See, I got the joke.
You're good.
So I don't mean to sound, I don't want to come off like a hypocrite here, right? I'm not saying bands shouldn't be touring. I just think, in my opinion, Paul and Gene, there's nothing to gain from it at this point from them. So that's the only reason I'm surprised this continuing to go out there.
Let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
You gotta put yourself in their shoes. Think you're Gene Simmons
Yes.
or you're Paul Stanley. You co-wrote "Rock and Roll All Night," one of the greatest rock songs ever written and recorded. I'm sure every night when they do that song and the confetti goes up and that adulation, that feeling, it's like a drug. It's something that they know every time they do is shit. Man, this is awesome, but one day I'm not going to have this. I'm sure a lot of that plays into it, no matter whether they need it money wise. Remember,
Which they don't, obviously.
Yeah. Paul's great. He could cook. He's an accomplished painter. Supposedly Gene is now, from what I understand. And I don't mean that because he's not. I just, I was just surprised to hear that. I think it's more about that than anything else. I'm sure money has something to do with it.
But then that begs the question: will the end of the road ever end? If that's the driving force for them, right?
Well, it has to.
Right. It has to, simply because one day none of us are going to be here. But if that's their mindset that they can't get away from it, then I don't think the end of the road will be the end of the road ever. So
yeah, okay.
It's an interesting dynamic. Again, I'm glad we went 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was at this point. I'm glad they gave it a shot. I'm just surprised they're going to continue at it. And even more so, I'm surprised that as of today, which is September 3rd, when we're recording this, the Kiss Cruise is still a go. That actually shocks me, no pun intended. The PR that they can get if something happens on that ship, to me, will be something that followed them the rest of their career, I would think.
Right.
I don't, and now obviously there's contracts, and it might be not even Kiss, it might be Sixth Man, and I'm booked, right? I'm booked to go, and as of today, I'm still going.
Right.
But I am stunned that that's still happening. I will say, about an hour before we started recording, the Kiss Cruise pre-party that usually happens the day and two beforehand, they just announced today, about an hour ago, that that's being canceled to keep people safe. And they didn't think it was the right thing to do, to put all the fans inside. And so I give them a lot of credit for that. I think they made a tough decision there, but I think they made the right decision. I'm surprised. Like every day I check my email. I'm like, all right, today's going to be the day this cruise is postponed until next spring or next fall. I'm stunned that is still supposedly all. And Kiss just tweeted about it like 48 hours ago, 60 days until we're on sea with you guys. And I'm just like, wow, I'm surprised with the fact that Paul and Gene got COVID after 10 days on the road. What happened on cruise ships last year when COVID first started? I am stunned that Kiss is still going forward with this cruise. Unless their hands are tied contractually, they have no choice. They have to. I don't know. I'm just very surprised at that.
I mean, again, I'm sure there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we're not aware of.
Of course,
and but I don't know. But
time will
tell. The bottom line is this whole thing is we hope they recover, and they get well. And, I'm glad they said mild symptoms and stuff like that. And I think Paul even said at one point, like, it kicked his butt a bit, you know what I mean? Yeah. But we just want them to recover. That's the bottom line. So,
and I think, and that's, I think they're very fortunate they were both vaccinated. So they seem to have, mild symptoms. I'm happy about that. I just hate to see anybody else in the band or touring with them, because I know some of the people who work for them. I just hate to see anybody else contact it and get it. But like you said, most important, I'm hoping that their health is okay. And, maybe on some level, I'm like almost hoping they could get out there on September 9th, which is the exact opposite of everything I just said, because it just shows that, hey, we can get this. We're down for 2 weeks. It's okay. You'll survive. I'm vaccinated. And I get right back to doing what I love, because it's going to be okay. And there's a part of me that actually likes that mentality. So as much as I
Mm-hmm.
just said, why would they? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking of it from their point of view. Why would they? They don't need the money. They don't need the PR that comes along with it. Actually, part of me loves that they are, because it just shows this isn't going to knock us down. This isn't going to stop us. Like I said, remember, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. Just came back 8 days from Disney. Okay. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not suggesting that we all sit in the house. So there's a part of me that's like, good, get back out there and show everybody that, yeah, this might knock you down temporarily, but you get right back up and do it all over again,
Mm-hmm.
and still rock. So even at
Mm-hmm.
70 years old. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out the next few weeks.
Yeah. And the other thing, let's not forget, these guys both were vaccinated and they
Yeah.
got COVID. So
Yeah.
again, for those people who, like you and I, just goes to show. Now I don't know if this was the variant, because they say, I don't remember the numbers. Like, Johnson Johnson's like 40% effective. The other one was 60. The other one was 8. Whatever the numbers were, you know
Yep.
what I mean. And now there's booster shots, and so there's also that that we should think about.
Yep. Yep. I was talking to a friend of mine while I was at Disney, and she said to me that, Mike, I think every single person on the planet eventually is going to get COVID. It's just a matter of how bad you get it, if you were vaccinated, whatever. And I tend to
Well,
start to think that might be right, but
look, flu is very common. I get
yeah.
a flu shot every year. I've never had the flu. So
Mhm.
I think I'm one that, look, I've had flu shots. I got the COVID shot. That's kind of my plan. I know other people don't want to do it. That's your
Yep.
choice. I'm not preaching, and everybody's different. Everybody's body, just like some people got, both shots, no effect, like myself. Some people
Mhm.
got, and they kicked their ass for 2 or 3 days or whatever,
Yep.
or 24
Yep.
hours. Um, so, you know,
There's a
yeah.
part of me that almost says, just give me the damn COVID already. This way I could be like D. Snyder said when I interviewed him. He said he feels invincible. He's got double vaccine. He had COVID. He has more antibodies and he knows what to do with. There's like nothing can stop him now. He pretty much felt like,
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to wish anything on
no,
somebody, because you just
of
know,
course
you know
not.
what I mean?
Of course
So,
not. Yeah.
but,
Yep. Yep. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'll keep checking my email on a daily basis to see about the cruise. I'm thankful. I see Gene tweeting pretty much 4, 5, 6 times a day right now. So clearly, as much
which
as he
is my,
has it, what was that?
which is my segue.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah,
he's obviously capable of doing that still. So I'm happy to see that. It seems like he's doing, relatively speaking, okay. And I'm not trying to minimize what he's going through, but I'm hoping both of them recover. And well, if they're good enough to be back on the road September 9th and everybody's healthy, more power to them. I hope it happens that
yeah.
they are feeling good enough to do that. So what's your
Hmm.
segue, my friend?
Well,
Held itself. All right, so that's it. Thanks
thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you. Good night. So,
What's your segue?
um, my segue is Gene and the David Lee Roth thing. And I know you
Yes.
didn't bring that up, so I
Yes, yeah,
figured,
no, I'm glad you brought it up. Yep.
So I'll start with you. What's your opinion? Since you always usually start with me, what's your
Yeah.
opinion?
I thought Gene was out of line. Forget whether or not what he said was true or not, right? Or accurate or not. Um, there's no need for it.
Right.
David Lee Roth is an icon. He's a
Hmm.
legend. He's one of the greatest frontmen of all time. You show him respect. That's it. I
Yeah.
don't care if
Yeah.
he's a fraction of what he used to be. None of that matters to me. The man's a legend. You don't take a shot at him in the press like that. I
Yeah.
think that's uncalled for personally. It's
Yeah.
not to say that I don't think that some of what Gene said was accurate, but it's irrelevant if it's accurate or not. You don't take a shot like that at a legend or anybody for that matter, but especially not a legend like Dave. I loved Dave's response with the 18 tweets or Instagram post with the middle finger, F you, Gene.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. I think that's
Yeah.
hilarious. That's typical Dave with his, quirky sense of humor. And Gene has since apologized. I know people say Paul made him do it, or the Kiss Camp made him do it. Whatever the case may be, he did it.
Hmm.
And I don't care what the cause was. He should have done that to me, apologize. It was the right thing to do. Um, Part of me says that's Gene being Gene. He's got friggin' diarrhea of the mouth sometimes. He just says things
Yeah.
and then regrets it afterwards. It's not the first, second, or even 10th time he's done something like that in his career. But
Yeah.
that's my thoughts. It was a bit uncalled for to me and unnecessary. The guy Roth is a legend.
Yeah. No, I agree. And let's face facts, not to beat up on anybody. The guy who's sitting next to him is not exactly in his prime form.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you're exposing your own guy.
Yeah. There's no
Which
need
it
for
makes absolutely no sense.
No,
You know.
no. No. And look,
But
that comes from a guy, and I'll get crucified for this. You know this. When it comes to Van Halen, I prefer the Hagar days over the David Lee
mhm.
Roth days. That's not to say I don't love the David Lee Roth days, right? But you don't do that to Dave. You don't.
Yeah,
And you and I went to some of those shows with Dave opening, and I thought he was great. I
yeah,
loved his show. I
yeah,
wish he was back out there. No disrespect to the painter, but I wish David Lee Roth was out there again right now with them.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's just Gene being Gene.
I agree with
Nah.
you. I agree with you. And Gene, I mean, made another comment about rock is dead and the Foo Fighters are grandpa's band. I mean, like he just, I don't know. I saw some other quote. I'm like, every day, all day, I see something like Gene saying, like, can you just keep quiet? It's just like, I
So
don't
it's
know.
interesting. I didn't see that quote, but I saw I think, tweeted something that says, you know, whoever it was, hey, Mike, you're a jerk if you think I've said the Foo Fighters are a great band for the last 20 years. You're misinterpreting my quote. So obviously I missed the original quote. But in defense of Gene has been very complimentary to the Foo Fighters for years. So I
Oh,
think
yeah.
he just meant that the Foo Fighters are a band that's been around for, which is true, 25 plus years. They're not a new band.
Right,
When
right,
Gene
right,
starts his rock is dead shtick, I understand what he's doing. He's trying to say there's no new bands. And you can't point to the Foo Fighters and say, oh, look, the Foo Fighters are still selling out
right,
stadiums.
right,
They're eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they've been around for so damn long.
right, right, right,
So,
right. Yeah.
but
Yeah, and I
Gene,
don't know, like sometimes the media they take out certain things and they
yes.
put things together that make. And I think he said something about that with the Roth thing. Like I said this, and then I said that about Elvis and whatever, and
Right,
it kind of. But it was like, well, it doesn't matter what I should have never said it anyways. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's just, and sometimes I wonder because Gene's very bright. We all know that, right?
yeah.
So, Gene, does he have, like I said before, a diary of the mouth where he just talks before he thinks? Or is he thinking, I got to get the sound bite and I'm going to say something? I'll apologize for it afterwards if I need to, but I'm going to say
Could
something
be,
to get me in the
could be,
news,
could be.
because for better or for worse, the man knows how to get a sound bite.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
How
Yeah,
many people talk about the is rock dead? Gene Simmons said, is rock dead? I mean,
right.
you've got people, whether it's some of my interviews I've done, I've heard Eddie Trunk talk about it on some of his. You've got all these people talking about it with other artists. Oh,
Right.
did you hear Gene Simmons said this? Oh, Gene's got his name out in the news now. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
right or wrong, I don't know if it's right to do that, but he's a marketing genius in some ways. He's
Oh yeah,
constantly got his
oh
name
yeah,
out there.
yeah,
But yeah, I wish he didn't do that with Dave. That when I saw that, I was just like, not
yeah,
cool, not cool.
yeah.
But
I agree.
so, alrighty, I think those were all the topics we wanted to cover here. I can't go on vacation anymore because apparently when I do,
Not allowed.
a lot of stuff happens.
Not
A lot
allowed.
of stuff happens.
You're banned from vacation moving forward.
So then I won't tell you that. What's today? Friday when we're recording this. 4 weeks from today, I'll be back in Disney.
I just waited for the next time you come on the screen and you're one of the freaking characters.
So I did talk about that while I was away. Which character, if I could be a character for the day, which one would I want to be? So maybe one day I'll appear like as
Just
Goofy.
surprise me. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I'll just show up as
Yeah.
Goofy. Hello,
Yeah,
people.
that'd be great.
Oh man, that would be maybe when we do our Halloween episode this year. That's what I'll do.
Oh, that's a good idea. We should.
I'll come up
Yeah,
dressed up as a Disney character.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess in closing, let us know your thoughts, everybody watching, on Charlie Watts. What did he mean to you? What did the Rolling Stones mean to you and his playing in the Stones? Let us know what you thought about the whole Kiss COVID situation, Paul and Gene coming down with COVID. Do you think they should have postponed the tour again at this point? Do you think they should go back out to play? There's no right or wrong answers here. So I want everybody to respect each other's opinions. If I see nonsense about people starting to fight about vaccines
Mm,
and political stuff, I'm deleting all those comments. I don't want to see any of that nonsense. I just like to hear from you what you think your personal opinion is.
right.
Should the Kiss Cruise be canceled? And I guess also, what did people think about Gene and David Lee Roth, Gene's comments about David Lee Roth? A lot of topics there that we covered in about an hour or so. So let us know your thoughts on all of those. As always, thank you to my friend in the black t-shirt. I really appreciate you joining me.
Just say in the uniform. In the
uniform. That's right. We were
Yeah.
talking before we started recording, and I always bust your chops about the black t-shirt. And you said, what, you have like 450 of them now? What is it?
Yeah, something like that. And I ordered a bunch more. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So you'll have a whole new set of black
Well,
t-shirts.
I want three. How many days are in the year? 362. I want 362 black.
365. Try again.
Six.
I don't know what
5.
calendar you have in your
I don't.
house.
I don't know. I don't know what calendar.
Oh man, 362. That's good.
Yeah.
365 black t-shirts. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Well, you're
Uh-huh.
following in Stanley's footsteps. Stanley is known for always wearing like one shirt. He had for a while like the black one with the white
Mm-hmm.
polka dots. When he was doing the Live to Win tour, he had that leopard one.
Yeah.
You want to follow in that footsteps. Only yours
Yeah.
is just the plain black t-shirt.
Plain black tea.
Wasn't there a
Yeah.
band called Plain White Tees?
White tees. Yeah.
White
Something like
Tees.
that.
So you're
Yeah.
gonna start
Yeah.
you should rename your
Plain black
band
tees. Yeah.
Plain
Yeah.
Black Tees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I told you before, and I'm going to close on this here. You got to reshare your video of Before the Storm, where you have Matt Starr from Ace Frehley's band on, Eric Levy from Night Ranger, Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake. You got to reshare that so that people who may be watching this for the first time can say, wow, Vin recorded songs with those guys. Anybody who's watching, you got to check it out. Vincent LaRussa, Before the Storm. There's a total segue you didn't expect, but make sure you reshare that because and if you want to rename the band, just rename it Plain Black Tees. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Anytime. So, all righty. On that note, everybody, as always, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon. Until next time, Ringo Aya. Out.
Out.
Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank everybody for watching and listening. Lots of topics covered on this one, like we said at the start. We'd like to hear your thoughts and your comments. What was your favorite Rolling Stones song Charlie Watts played drums on? We'd love to hear your comments about that. As we always say, go back and listen to the music, and rest in peace, Charlie. We'd also like to hear your thoughts on the KISS tour, and when do you think they should pick it back up, or do you think they should start canceling the shows and think about it in 2022? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And of course, last, we'd like to hear your thoughts and comments on the Gene Simmons, David Lee Roth feud. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.